Welcome to the Pulse of Spokane. Kent Adams here, and we're doing this just before Thanksgiving. And it's so very appropriate because one of the things I love about Spokane is that we have some honest to goodness great nonprofits that are really doing some good things. And one of them is the Union Gospel Mission. And I am so pleased today to have Phil Altmeyer here. And we're going to talk with him about not only the holidays, which are just right in front of us, both Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up too, with all the changes that have been going on. In case you hadn't noticed, there's been a pandemic and everything else out there. These are stressful times. Stressful, especially for those that are homeless and those working to help the homeless on a long-term basis. We're going to talk with Phil right after this.
We believe every person is created in the image of God with immeasurable beauty and worth, that people should not be defined by their present condition or past mistakes. We are all broken. We need each other. Healing for our brokenness begins with connection, with understanding how much we are loved by a good God. And with healing comes change, the potential for joy and meaning. No one was created for mere survival on the streets, for an existence blurred by mind-numbing substances. Each person is created with a purpose, a unique gift no one else can offer the world. Our job is to help them rediscover it. Real people, real change. Union Gospel Mission.
Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks,
Phil.
Kent.
How are you?
Same to you.
Yeah.
And full of thankfulness. You
Yes.
know, I was mentioning earlier the way we get through all this COVID-19, the way we really encourage the residents that come through our doors is a heart of thankfulness. Thankfulness produces contentment. And boy, there's a lot right now we could focus on that's difficult.
Yeah.
So I really believe it's critical.
You and I
Critical.
talked before we came on this morning about the fact that I'm seeing and I've been saying, and I think you have too, and others in the community, that we really have virus A and virus B. Virus A is the COVID-19 that's affected people physically and everything else. And yes, it's killed a few, made people very sick in some cases, although it's a very small percentage. But we hear about the negative part out there. But there's also that second virus, and that's what's happening to our businesses. That's what's happening to us as people. We're frustrated. We're depressed in some cases. If other things are going on, they intensify.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of problems and so forth. And I've had a couple of friends in the last week, 10 days, that have said, yeah, I'm not feeling as good. I don't know what worries me more, at home or at work, and the problems of managing a business and so forth. Are you seeing that out there?
Well, I think, disappointment is a reality because circumstances. Think of these college athletes today, all these basketball games that were canceled.
Yeah.
And the list goes on, restaurants that have to close. There's a lot of circumstances right now that are really, there's no way around it. They're negative. They're discouraging. But I think in the scope of things, you have to step back and say, this too is not the end of the world. What is the bigger picture, and what do I have to be thankful for? Because if our mind just goes to those things, then we haven't talked about the other thing that I see that has changed our culture, and that's fear.
Yeah.
This COVID thing has some people really fearful, and fear can control a person's life.
Yes.
To
yes,
where
good
you
point.
just shut down and get scared and lock up, and we were created as individuals to be in relationship, and when we isolate, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So again, all these things add up to what we're seeing in our culture. Where do people turn? And prior to COVID, the homeless, you see this in people. When they go through hard circumstances, how do they deal with that pain? They escape to addictive behaviors.
Right.
And those addictive behaviors is their woundedness and how they solve that pain. And again, they get buried in that addiction. And what the choices they make, the things they do, they don't make any sense. And it again begins to affect them in a negative way, and then that negativity just spreads, and they go down a deep hole, and it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you really have kind of a couple of groups. That's probably the wrong word, but clientele to worry about. One are your employees
Yeah.
and your volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And keeping their morale up and,
Yeah.
and keeping them positive and all of that. But you also have your clients
Right.
that need that too.
Right.
How do you think you're doing?
Well, tonight we have 21 volunteers showing up for our orientation. They want to
Nice.
come and help. So fear isn't driving their choices.
Good.
So that's,
good. I love it.
But I'll tell you, staff, some, they're not fearful. Others are a little hesitant.
Yeah.
And then what happens, Kent, that's really discouraging, you have a case of COVID-19 that hits one of our treatment centers.
Yes.
So then everyone has to go into lockdown.
Yeah.
And you have to tell the volunteers, stay away. 2 weeks or longer.
Right.
And you get another positive test, well, we got to wait longer. And then now you get to open back up again. And 2 weeks later, it hits again.
Yeah.
It's demoralizing to
It
the
is.
women that are trying to push through a program, and you say, stop, start, stop. But again, we're trying to push through it, and we're trying to say, let's stay upbeat, let's stay positive. Hopefully this won't last too long.
Right.
We keep saying that. But we got to remain positive about what's good and what we can be thankful for. And we can be thankful that these people have a clean, sober environment, a place to come where all their needs are met, where there's still relationship taking place. And the journey is a long journey anyway in recovery. So we just keep pressing into that.
And to me, that's what's important and what you do at Union Gospel Mission, because, yes, it's good to get people out of 12-degree weather and a place to stay warm so they don't literally freeze to death and a meal and so forth. But that doesn't solve the problem. It solves the immediate issue
Right.
of warmth and so forth,
Right.
both inside and outside. What you do is long-lasting. It's life-changing. And I think of you and teen adult group, Teen Challenge, and some others in town that take a look at this on a long-term, holistic approach, because your folks are with you for what, 18 months, 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I've become an expert by listening to all of you.
Yeah.
That's what it takes, doesn't it?
Well, Kent, here's what we're dealing with when you think about it. As an organization and all that we do for the homeless, you create a culture.
Yeah.
Now, it's no different than being a parent. What kind of culture do you create for your kids to be successful?
Yeah.
Is it no accountability, freedom to do anything?
Right.
When they choose to make stupid choices, do you reinforce those? What are you doing? So to me, helping the homeless is no different. And as a city, what kind of culture have we created to encourage people out of homelessness? Or are we creating cultures that only invite people into it and reinforce
a bed for the night?
Yeah, or reinforce their bad choices.
Yeah.
I'm all for a bed for the night, getting them in out of the cold.
Right.
But if their choices have placed them there, are we simply reinforcing the things that keep them there? And so that's those addictions that people are struggling with.
Right.
So again, I think you create the culture, and I say this all the time, Kent, as much as we want to help people, can we help them if they don't want it?
No.
Now,
I don't think so.
So track what our city's spending right now, and it's really one of the blessings of COVID, all this money that's pouring in to help the homeless, to help people. That's where they're getting the money for these warming centers and what they've talked about. But here's what I see that's interesting. We've opened them up. They're open now. There's plenty of beds. And when I go to work, because of the bridge by the mission that's now closed, I go a little back road that takes me down under Erie Street and dumps me onto Martin Luther King. Well, you know what's under Erie Street? I drove by the other day, and there's this car pulled up. 2 ladies. There's a guy that's been down there in a tent for I don't know how long. And they were carrying breakfast or food over to him. And I thought to myself, not the most safe place.
No.
But they chose to do it, and they took it over, and I watched them through my mirror to make sure they were safe.
Right.
And they left the food outside the tent, and then they left. And I thought, well, what are they doing? They're keeping that guy there. Kent, I drove by the other day. There are now 5 other tents there
Yeah.
under those bridges there. And I'm thinking to myself, we just opened all these warming centers. Okay?
Right.
We said, we want you to
But
have
they're
a nice
still over
bed.
here.
Yeah, and again, I'm saying you can't help those that don't want help.
Yeah.
As you can spend millions of dollars, which we're doing on these shelters,
Right.
but you're still going to have this homeless element.
We've got a lot of things to talk about, but I guess the question I'm thinking, as you say, if they don't want help, what can we do? Is there anything we can do but give them a bed and some food?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I ask that as a layperson.
Yeah, this is a hard part. No one wants to see people sleeping outside in the cold. It's ridiculous.
No.
No one. No one does. We want to help them.
Right.
But it's this fine line between what does help look like and enablement.
Yes.
And that's where I don't think we're willing to go as a culture and a society. So when you look at cities, and I'm visiting the LC Valley right now because they don't have a warming center, they don't have a shelter.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at going down there and opening a shelter. But again, the city will adapt a philosophy that will either encourage homelessness,
Right.
or say, we're here, we love you, we want to help you, but we want to help you in a way that moves you out of homelessness. Okay. And when you look at the culture of cities that have enabled, I'll tell you what's true about them. More and more shelters open, more and more housing projects open where government money pours in, we
Right.
pay for it. And guess what happens to the number of homelessness? It increases. It does not decrease.
It draws people.
It draws people.
Yeah.
And when you look at our city, all the services and meals that you can eat 3 times a day in the downtown core, the housing first, it's gone. We're up to 6 or more of those units, all in a 3-block area. All that housing, rewarding the people with longevity, homelessness, addiction, they come. What are you going to do? And the theory was we would end homelessness and chronic homelessness, but it's only increased in our city. And that's true of every city that has chosen that philosophy. Now, Kent, the latest study that came out of HUD said clearly, the philosophy of housing first has failed. It has not ended homelessness. It's only increased.
Wow.
In fact, our city council just said any money that goes out in our city has to buy into a housing first program. So the very thing that we've looked back, Canada, other cities that have done this, said it's failed, we're heading down that path in our own city.
Wow.
Now, I think the resources are there. Housing First has some great apartments, great units.
Right.
I think it's how we use them that we could change
It's
everything.
at what stage and so forth, too. Are they going to make a change that then warrants their going to something like that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Accountability,
Yeah.
reward, using that housing in a positive way
Right.
that doesn't encourage people with more dependence, more enablement, but encourages them and rewards them and say, we believe you're creating the image of God. You have tremendous potential. We want to see you move forward in life.
Yeah.
The question I ask, we're pouring millions of dollars into this, Kent. What is the outcomes? How many are ending homelessness and going to work? And I would say out of our Housing First projects, it's a great question to ask. How many, as a result of Housing First, have actually ended homelessness and become dependent and gotten a job? I look at a small nonprofit that we are.
Yeah.
We've had over 200 people for the last 5 years consistently get jobs. We're going to end homelessness. We're not interested in how many people we can just feed and have come to the mission. We want to see them become God-dependent, contributing members of society, living on their own, giving back. That's what makes America great.
Yes, absolutely.
And our city great.
Yeah. But there was in the previous administration, and I'm thinking with council president and current council, of throwing money that they have available, but not to religious organizations. Would you accept some money if you had the freedom to do what you do best?
Well, you know, the Trump administration opened the doors and really wanted to send out the money. At this point in time, we've never accepted any government funding.
Right.
And that's because it always has strings attached.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the community step forward. I think they see what happens at the mission, that lives are changed. We're helping people. We're ending homelessness. And this community's been very generous, supported us like I just cannot comprehend in the years I've been at the mission. So I think what's happened is the government, right or wrong, has its philosophy of how you help people, and it's no accountability. And so I don't want to enter into that arena and have that attached to what we can and can't do. And the other thing, Kent, what I've seen over the years, it's what's going on in our heart that changes our behavior. And if I can't address issues of the heart and heal the heart, which is the spiritual component, you know, you're just providing the Band-Aid or the physical things. Now, those things are good, but if you can't have some accountability and really get to the root of issues, recovery is where it's at, and we got to help people through their woundedness, the trauma, their childhood experiences, and really help them come to grips to move past that instead of escaping into an addiction. And so we get the freedom to do that.
Yes, and good for you. I think that's a good way to go. I wish that the government dollars were better used, and maybe we can push toward that. You mentioned about the city and downtown and so forth. There's been discussion with the mayor and others to not keep dumping everything in downtown city of Spokane. Should we be looking outside the city of Spokane borders, and why?
You know, Kent, it's an area problem.
Yes.
You know, people from the whole region around here.
Even if they're downtown, many of them have come from the valley or other
surrounding little up north, Colville, all these little towns. You can go to Ritzville, Davenport, Reardon, Colfax, all the way around our whole community, these sub-communities. People, when they're homeless, have a problem, where are they going to go? They're going to go where the resources are. In fact, I would go so far as
downtown Spokane.
And I would go so far as say, Kent, they're coming from Portland, they're coming from Seattle, they're coming from everywhere when they learn what's available in our city. And so anyway, is it fair when it's a regional issue? I've often said, wouldn't it be interesting if we were able to really diagnose where people were coming from and say this region will serve this region? But anyway, they're going to go where the resources are, and all of them are downtown. And Kent, I personally believe if the city council and people are tuned in, and I appreciate the mayor, we cannot continue for the business people downtown, for the environment of our downtown city, which is a beautiful city. We cannot continue to just invite the homeless to all the services that are available and continue to build more shelters in the downtown. Historically, most people don't know this, but when we needed to put up a new women's shelter, crisis shelter, we were offered some facilities downtown, and I wouldn't even look at them. I said, it's not fair to the downtown community. And plus, it's not the best healthy environment when you've got what's happening in the downtown with homelessness. You want to get people out of that environment and create a community that's positive. And so where people are saying, you know what, I've had enough of this homelessness, I want to go somewhere and get help. So I agree with the mayor. I think we need to say, where can some of these other surrounding areas pick up the slack? Where do we have an area that's between the valley and the downtown core that we can begin? You know, but again, here's what.
And in the county itself.
You know. But people are going to say, what, it's the NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Of course.
But
there will always be that.
But I think where the argument is, if your land value, if your neighborhood's going to change, do you want that in your neighborhood? So again, that comes back to what kind of shelters are we going to operate? What are going to be the policies and the standards? And if you open a shelter where you just sleep people at night, where are they going to go for food?
Well, I drive by, I'll be coming back from Office Depot like I did yesterday, and I'm coming down and I'm passing 2 or 3 homeless facilities. And now we've engaged a number of people, some of them who are doing right by it, some of them that probably aren't. I'm not going to make accusations without knowing for sure. But you see them standing around outside and everything else. And you have people out in the county or out in the city and so forth that go, well, I don't want that in my backyard.
Totally.
And that's part of what you were saying before is if we concentrate all of this in the same block or blocks or same part of town, we cause a problem for businesses, and we've seen the stories in the paper and on the news at night and so forth of shop owners who are inundated with people sleeping in their doorway and everything else. And so there've got to be, what I understand is the Spokane Valley needs to change some of their zoning and so forth, and have an issue that prevents them from doing some of this. But isn't the Spokane City, Spokane County, and Spokane City of the Valley, do you see them coming together?
I hope so, and I think the model, all we have to do, I keep saying this over and over, why don't we stop just looking at Spokane? Yeah. Why don't we take a look at Portland? Why don't we take a look at Seattle when they concentrated all their homelessness in downtown areas? What did it do to their inner city? What has it done up in Canada? Right. So I think, wisdom would tell you it makes no sense to put it all in one area.
Right.
Because you end up with blocks being literally destroyed and destructive.
Right.
And so, again, we're not Portland, we're not Seattle. We can easily get there if we continue our policies the same direction those cities did. And Portland, Ken, I don't know if you know, the mayor said, we want to be the most welcoming city to youth and homelessness, and look what's happened to it.
Right.
And again, there's a way to welcome and there's a way to help.
Yes.
And I think we have to draw that balance if we're going to be wise as a city, because we have a beautiful downtown.
Yes.
And with people making huge investments, and if we don't really value, to me, the businessmen support our work.
Right.
And I support them 100%. And the other thing, Kent, is when you have individuals that don't care about property, they leave graffiti, they leave their human whatever behind them, what it does, it hardens the hearts of people to want to help. Yeah. And so I keep coming back to, let's help those that want help, let's add accountability, and let's not OD the structure. Let's not put everyone in our downtown core.
This is an important discussion, and we're going to take a break in a minute now, and I want to talk about the uniqueness of what we need to do for homeless shelters for our teens and all that goes in, because that's like men's shelters and women's shelters. Yeah. There are different needs and so forth. Yeah. And I worry about the trafficking issue and so forth that goes on with that. And so let's keep talking. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about shelters for teens.
Great.
Buying a car at Wendell Nissan really is a piece of cake. Use our online tool and do everything before you arrive, even the financing. Go to wendellnissan.com and be in your new car in no time. It's a piece of cake.
When we opened the doors the first day, we started with a counter full of maybe a dozen selections of a dozen cupcakes. We sold out, and it just went crazy from there. I'm Sally. I run Sweet Frosting's Blissful Bake Shop downtown Spokane. It's almost 40 years of baking for me. We now do between 1,000 and 2,000 cupcakes a day. The variety of cupcakes is kind of like the variety of services that STCU provides for us. Since we opened this site in 2014, they've been our banker. We are producing for 4 stores right here, so we have 35 to 40 employees at any one time. There's an STCU close to virtually every one of my stores, and every time I get a new employee, that's the first place we send them. STCU is such a good fit. It's just so convenient for me to have them as neighbors. They are always so pleasant and always so helpful, and we have a lot of little needs. They've always been behind me 100%, so it's a good thing to have that partnership.
Here at River Ridge Hardware, we carry a great selection of Krylon brand spray paints, Color Master, general purpose, the Rust Protector for taking care of metal, Fusion for taking care of plastics, and the Super Max that can take care of it all.
Weather in the inland Northwest can wear you down. And if your gutters are in poor condition or you do not have gutters, you could suffer damage that could cost a fortune to fix. Rainman Seamless Rain Gutters has almost 30 years of professional experience in serving the inland Northwest region and strives to ensure customer service that is second to none, from the time you call to the end of the project.
Well, welcome back, Phil Altmeyer from, what is your title there?
Executive Director. Yeah.
You know, I have to ask that because everyone from a nonprofit comes in, well, I'm president, I'm an executive director, or I've just now been named or whatever, kind of thing. Phil, you have a family history at the Union Gospel Mission, and I'm so pleased that I hear nothing but good things about what's going on there. And when I put up your ads and mentions and so forth, I get people who get on our Facebook and will tell me in person, I see they're one of your sponsors, one of your organizations you love, and so forth. And I say, absolutely, absolutely, because I've heard the stories.
Yeah.
I know the results.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we're about? Is not just what we talked about early in this game, which is giving them something to eat, to nourish them, and a place to stay warm tonight. But it's more than that, to give them a life that in a future. And
well, Kent, 34 years, it's just been my joy to be there. And when I think of a young lady who I understand you can go on YouTube and watch this right now, standing on the edge of the Monroe Street Bridge, ready to jump off, and they filmed the whole event and they saved her. Today, that young lady is at Anna Ogden Hall going through a program with hope, with joy, and a purpose to live. And that's what I really think so often. You hear these stories, many that have tried to commit suicide, different. One lady told me, I overdosed, and in that darkness, somehow a bright light, and God said, you have purpose. And she broke down in tears telling the memory of this story, and she's in that program saying, I changed, something happened to me, and God showed up. And so when I see people that have been totally ready to end their life,
right,
and now they have
in
purpose.
such despair,
yeah, and they're totally heading down a path. I want my kids back. I want to restore my marriage. I want to restore my family. It's so exciting, and then to see them do it, not just talk about it, but see it take place. Nothing more exciting, nothing more fulfilling than to be a part of that. Right. So it's a joy.
Let's talk about shelters for youth.
Yes.
They present different challenges.
They do.
What are some of those challenges, and how do you address them?
Well, I'll tell you, Kent, there's a lot of incredible guidelines of what you can and can't do with youth. And one of the things that's frustrating is the volume of staff and supervision that the state and what they require.
Sure.
And again, I can understand why, but it's almost like it's over the top. You have to have registered psychologists, registered nurses, all these type of staff
on staff.
Yes, and it's just over the top. Now, when we talk about youth centers in Spokane, and we look at youth, I have to tell you, I experienced something last week when I was in the LC Valley that just encouraged my heart. They down in Lewiston learned a way that Idaho has two ways that you can help youth. Now, again, let me remind our listeners, this is Idaho.
Right.
One of them, if you're at Live-In, they have a youth center they just opened down there. And here's what I love about it. They're helping kids that are homeless, but they're only going to help those kids that are going to school and trying to make something of their life.
Right.
They're not just, here we are, come in, all the homeless, let's hang out, let's hope we can encourage you and change you, while in the meantime you're doing all these dysfunctional things, drugs, whatever.
Right.
But they're literally saying we're going to help those kids that truly, because of their parents' dysfunction, because of other circumstances, have ended up in this. And it's a beautiful thing to see happen. Now, whether or not Washington's laws are so much different, but I was so encouraged to see that someone has learned a way that they can create a positive environment for youth, not just to hang out, but a safe place.
And to keep them off the streets kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a chance for change.
Yeah, a chance for change.
Yep.
And if they have to be in school, they have to they're not going to get caught up in the little things that kids do that are dumb. But if they're willing to work and go to school and work with the kids on their homework, it was a beautiful thing for me to see. So I just believe that the homeless youth problem can end up looking a lot like the adult problem. What kind of culture do we create?
Right.
I know everyone's heart is to want to change and move people in a direction, Kent,
Right.
but what we don't understand is we become like the company we keep. And if you are hanging out with kids that are stealing, doing drugs, and just living on the street every day,
Right.
what are you going to begin to do?
Yeah.
So again, but if you're in school and you've fallen on hard times, your parents, where is there a place for those kids to go? I'm exploring what could we do. I don't know how we pull it off in the state of Washington, but I was encouraged that there's a way in Idaho.
Yeah, and I learned something just listening to you that I hadn't really thought about, that these kids are in dysfunctional families
Yes.
with parents. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily the kids that are dysfunctional. They are because of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
home situation, but
Yeah.
they need a chance to see
Yeah.
that homework is important. Going
Yeah.
to school is important.
Yeah.
Showing up for a job if they're old enough is important.
Yeah.
And they're obviously not getting that at home. So I forget about
Yeah.
that. So much of that comes from
Yeah.
the parents and so forth.
And Kent, a lot of these kids are able to see what's happening in their parents' life, and
Yeah.
they say, "I don't want this."
No.
And then you have
But where do you go?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I was encouraged yesterday. Again, this is the direction we need to go. I give a shout out for Rogers Toyota in Lewiston. They have a program that when you're in the 6th grade, if you are in school every day and you don't
Yeah.
miss a day, they give you a bike, a helmet, and
Yeah.
something else.
We used to do that here. Miss school, miss out.
Yeah, and they're rewarding the good behavior.
Yes.
And I'm saying that's what we need to move in that direction, because when we start rewarding the kids that are making bad choices, you're just going to see
Yeah.
more and more kids. And so there's hope. We just got to help those that want the help.
Yeah.
We can't do it if they don't want the help.
What's the Student Impact Center that UGM is doing?
We're not housing because of all these regulations,
Right.
and also, if you're going to house youth, they have to be in separate rooms. You
Okay.
can't sleep them in larger rooms, even though you have oversight. So you have to have all these single rooms, and you have to have all this supervision. So we haven't been able to say this makes sense for us to be able to do. So what we've tried to do is create a culture and a place where college students can come, live together, serve throughout our ministry, and also serve the youth for after school. They can come there,
nice.
hanging out. And
Nice.
then we wanted to create a culture that's like a family, where they could eat together and experience more of what a normal family is, not just a center where kids hang out. So it's highly relational, and we're engaging that generation that I feel can reach out and have a greater impact. Sorry to say this, but if you and I showed up, we're kind of out of date with these youth. But if a college student shows up,
Yeah.
they're able to have more of an impact,
Yeah,
and that's the goal.
Yeah. And you're right about at least me being out of
Well.
date. Okay. That is really so true.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
and they don't identify with
Right.
a 70-year-old,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
40-year-old or
No,
whatever.
yeah, I'm
trying to
right
be
behind
nice.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We've talked about a lot of problems and everything else. Is there some hope?
Yeah, there
Let's
is.
talk about that.
There
okay?
is.
Let's end on a positive note.
Yeah, totally. And I think this. I think no matter how hard a heart gets, no matter how many terrible choices a person's made, whether it be their own circumstances or the things that have been brought on through their parents, through their culture, through their environment, this I know to be true, that deep down in the heart of man, there is hope because of what Christ can do. And that is found in forgiveness. That's found in purpose in life, a future. And I see it time and time again. People that have lived in so much guilt, so much shame, because they've done some horrible things. They've made some bad choices. Yeah. And there's a lot of pain. And you can either escape into an addiction and bury that pain,
right,
or you can come out of it and say, you know what? I'm forgiven. It's time to move forward. My past no longer affects me.
Holds me back.
It's where I'm going. And that's what I believe hope is. Hope is about the future. It's about being forgiven. It's about what's ahead for us.
Right.
And that's what I believe the Scriptures is all about, what the gospel's all about.
Right.
And, you know, we're all passing through. I tell people this all the time, Kent. Really, we're all homeless.
Yeah.
We're only here for a temporary time.
Right.
And when we understand our future, where we're going, and what we can offer to people, it gives hope for the future. Right. Not just for today, but for the future. And it removes a lot of the fear. I mean, let's talk about COVID. I'm going to die someday. We're all going to die.
Right.
Am I going to just hunker down and live in fear?
No.
Or am I knowing where eternity is, what life is after this, and I have hope for the future, so I live today with fullness.
Yeah.
So to me, the Union Gospel Mission is presenting that message of hope, helping people deal with their past, deal with forgiveness, deal with shame, deal with guilt, and move forward, because that guilt will literally just hunker down and destroy a life. Shame and guilt.
You've got 21 people coming tonight to learn how to volunteer, so obviously you're still looking for people to volunteer.
Yes.
What a great way. I'll have to tell you, and you know this instinctively, when you help other people, you end up helping yourself a lot.
Exactly.
You know,
you're the one that gets blessed.
And what absolutely.
Yeah.
I've walked through your facilities. I've seen your facilities. I've met a lot of your staff. I love what you're doing. You obviously will have more of these training sessions coming up, so that's one way people can help.
Yeah.
We're in the Christmas season coming up. We're in Thanksgiving this week and Christmas season. People can help with contributions as well.
Yeah.
Where can they go? Website?
Website. Yeah,
Okay.
It's the easiest, quickest.
And that is?
UnionGospelMission.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really simple.
Spokane.
Even I can remember that.
Yeah. UGMSpokane.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to support the Union Gospel Mission. They're doing some great things, and we love it. We love what you're doing there.
Thanks, Ken.
And thank you for doing that and taking on that leadership in our community. And it's more than just at the mission. I know you're involved with the mayor and the others in town in moving this community forward, and no better person. So thank you for what you do. And thanks for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving, and keep the Union Gospel Mission in mind as you look at how you can help this community and the homeless this Christmas season. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.